In Nebraska, ranchers who supported Donald Trump are now grappling with the unintended consequences of his immigration policies, which threaten their livelihoods. As Trump pushes for mass deportations, these ranchers are realizing that losing a significant portion of their labor force could devastate their agricultural operations. Despite their broad support for Trump on other issues, they are now faced with the reality that his stance on immigration directly undermines their ability to sustain their businesses. Nebraska ranchers and immigration reform. The issue centers around Nebraska ranchers who are calling for balanced immigration reform to address the labor needs in agriculture. These ranchers depend heavily on migrant labor, with 42% of their workforce consisting of undocumented immigrants. While they support legal immigration and enforcement of immigration laws, they are now realizing that the sweeping deportation policies Trump advocates for would create a void in an industry already struggling to find adequate help. Data from the U.S. Department of Agriculture reveals that only 1/3 of farm workers in the country were born in the United States. The remaining 2/3 are immigrants, many of whom are undocumented. This heavy reliance on immigrant labor underscores the importance of a measured and systemic approach to immigration reform, a concept that these ranchers previously ridiculed when proposed by other political leaders. Contradictions in support. These ranchers, like many Trump supporters, have shown a willingness to overlook the broader consequences of his policies as long as he aligns with their political and cultural values. They championed his hardline stance on immigration at rallies, embracing rhetoric like "send them back," but are now seeing how this same rhetoric translates into policies that jeopardize their economic stability. The contradiction is stark. These ranchers support Trump's policies on other issues, yet his approach to immigration, the very lifeline of their industry, is threatening their livelihoods. For example, while they rally behind the notion of securing the border and deporting criminals and terrorists, they now acknowledge that the vast majority of migrants in their workforce are law-abiding individuals contributing to the economy. By supporting Trump's broad-brush immigration policies, they have effectively voted against their own economic interests. The need for comprehensive immigration reform. What these ranchers are now advocating for aligns more closely with the policies proposed by the Biden administration, which focus on comprehensive immigration reform. This includes creating pathways to citizenship for undocumented workers, improving guest worker programs, and addressing systemic issues in the immigration process. Ironically, these are the very policies they opposed, often dismissing them as too lenient or unpatriotic. For instance, the bipartisan border deal sponsored by conservative Senator James Lankford and supported by the Biden administration aimed to address these challenges. However, Trump instructed his allies in Congress to kill the bill, prioritizing political gains over practical solutions. By doing so, he not only undermined efforts to create a balanced immigration system but also exacerbated the labor shortages that these ranchers now face. Economic realities of immigration policies. The economic impact of Trump's immigration policies extends beyond agriculture. Tariffs and trade wars initiated by his administration have also hurt American farmers and ranchers. For instance, retaliatory tariffs from countries like China have reduced the market for U.S. agricultural exports, further straining an already struggling industry. Ranchers and farmers who once celebrated Trump's tough-on-trade stance are now finding themselves at a disadvantage as international markets shift to other suppliers. Moreover, the reliance on undocumented labor is not limited to agriculture. Industries like construction, hospitality, and manufacturing also depend on migrant workers. The deportation of these workers not only disrupts individual businesses, but also has a cascading effect on local economies, driving up costs and reducing productivity. The role of propaganda and misdirection. One of the reasons these contradictions persist is the power of propaganda and misdirection. Trump's rhetoric often focuses on cultural wedge issues, such as transgender athletes or controversial advertising campaigns, to distract from the tangible effects of his policies. This strategy keeps his base engaged and outraged, diverting attention from issues that directly affect their lives, like the labor shortages in agriculture. For example, ranchers in Nebraska have been more vocal about cultural issues than about the policies that are dismantling their industry. By focusing on symbolic battles rather than substantive solutions, they have allowed themselves to be manipulated into voting against their own interests. The consequences of policy choices. The consequences of these policy choices are becoming increasingly evident. Ranchers are now calling for year-round guest worker programs, such as the H-2A visa, which is currently limited to seasonal agricultural work. They are also advocating for a streamlined process to legalize undocumented workers already contributing to the economy. However, these measures face significant political hurdles, as the same leaders these ranchers supported continue to block comprehensive reform efforts. Nebraska's governor, for instance, has pledged to work with the Trump administration to enforce immigration laws, including using state law enforcement and the National Guard to support deportation efforts. This approach not only exacerbates labor shortages, but also creates an atmosphere of fear and uncertainty for migrant workers, further destabilizing the industry. The broader implications. The broader implications of these policies extend beyond Nebraska. As other states grapple with similar labor shortages and economic challenges, the need for comprehensive immigration reform becomes even more urgent. The current system, characterized by inefficiencies and inconsistencies, fails to address the realities of modern labor markets. Without meaningful reform, industries reliant on migrant labor will continue to suffer, with ripple effects throughout the economy. Additionally, the narrative surrounding immigration needs to shift from one of fear and scapegoating to one of recognition and appreciation for the contributions of migrant workers. Immigrants play a vital role in the economy, performing jobs that are essential but often overlooked. Addressing their needs through fair and practical policies benefits not only the workers themselves but also the industries and communities that depend on them. A call for accountability. The situation in Nebraska serves as a cautionary tale about the dangers of voting based on rhetoric rather than reality. Ranchers who supported Trump are now experiencing firsthand the consequences of his policies, which prioritize political posturing over practical solutions. By aligning themselves with leaders who disregard the complexities of immigration and labor markets, they have undermined their own economic stability. It is crucial for voters to critically evaluate the policies and priorities of their leaders, rather than being swayed by divisive rhetoric. The challenges facing industries like agriculture require thoughtful and comprehensive solutions, not simplistic slogans or punitive measures. As the leopards continue to eat faces, the question remains, will voters learn from these experiences and demand better from their leaders, or will they continue to prioritize short-term political gains over long-term economic stability? Conclusion. The story of Nebraska ranchers highlights the urgent need for balanced and comprehensive immigration reform. It also underscores the importance of accountability and critical thinking in political decision-making. As industries across the country face similar challenges, the lessons from Nebraska should serve as a wake-up call for voters and policymakers alike. Addressing these issues requires collaboration, empathy, and a commitment to practical solutions that benefit all Americans.